Good afternoon, and welcome to the TEA webinar on updates on the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA State Plan, Title III, Part A. My name is Barbara Kennedy, and I am the Director of English Learner Support here in the English Learner Support Division, Special Populations, at the Texas Education Agency. Joining me today is Susie Coltrus, Director of Bilingual ESL and Title III, Part A.
Good afternoon, everyone.
We are very grateful for you all attending today, our listen-only webinar on the topic of updates on the ESSA State Plan, Title III, Part A. The webinar purpose and format are as follows. The purpose: to provide Education Service Centers, ESCs, and school districts a high-level overview of the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan, Title III, Part A section, in anticipation of approval by the U.S. Department of Education, or USDE. The format of today's webinar: Bullet A, the live webinar presentation will be recorded so that stakeholders may view at a later time. Second, you may type in your questions and comments using the webinar chat feature if you are viewing live, or the Google form at the following link, and it is case sensitive. The link is https:// lowercase g-o-o dot lowercase g-l / uppercase N lowercase q 3 uppercase S lowercase v 3, or using the QR code at the lower right-hand corner of each slide. The English Learner Support Team will create and post to the web a frequently asked questions, or FAQ, document in response to your questions and to provide further clarification subsequent to this webinar. Our agenda for the webinar today: Number 1, what is ESSA? Number 2, Texas ESSA State Plan timeline. Number 3, standardized statewide program entrance procedure. Number 4, standardized statewide program exit procedure. And number 5, summary and next steps. Before we get started, I just wanted to let you know that at the conclusion of the webinar today, there will be a chart that summarizes all of the key information shared. The chart will summarize the key points, the timeline, as well as next steps. And we will go over those together at the conclusion of this webinar, and subsequently we will post a PDF of that chart that summarizes and provides next steps, along with the link to this recorded webinar to the TEA website, and so that you will have that for your convenience. What is ESSA? ESSA is the Every Student Succeeds Act. It was authorized on December 10th, 2015. It replaces the No Child Left Behind NCLB Act. It governs K-12 education in the United States. And it requires that each state submit an ESSA state plan that addresses key requirements, including those pertaining to English learners through Title III, Part A. On this slide, we're going to look at a timeline that proceeds from left to right. It is a timeline of the Texas ESSA State Plan showing the development and implementation. The ESSA State Plan was submitted to the USDE for initial review in December 2016. Please note that this initial ESSA State Plan was developed by the TEA in timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders across the state. TEA received feedback from the USDE on the draft plan in December 2017. TEA revised the ESSA State Plan and resubmitted it to the USDE for final approval in January of 2018. And the Texas ESSA State Plan will be implemented statewide for the 2018-2019 school year. Let me emphasize that at this time, the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan has been submitted for final approval to the USDE, but has not yet obtained final approval. The TEA is awaiting final approval from the USDE in the near future. This slide depicts the first of two prompts that were provided by the USDE and that the TA was required to respond for the ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section. In fact, the USDE posed two prompts for response by the TEA for this section of the ESSA State Plan. But only the first prompt, the one depicted here that we will review in a moment, required new information, and therefore we are focusing today's webinar presentation on the responses that address this first prompt, and we are not going to focus at all today on responses to the second prompt, as they did not include any changes to current practice. So let's take a look at the entrance and exit procedures first prompt posed by the USDE. Entrance and exit procedures, ESEA section 3113, subsection B, subsection 2. Describe how the SEA, and that is the state education agency, will establish and implement, with timely and meaningful consultation with LEAs, or local education agencies, representing the geographic diversity of the state, standardized statewide entrance and exit procedures, including an assurance that all students who may be English learners are assessed for such status within 30 days of enrollment in a school in the state. We're going to take a moment now to look very closely at the requirements, or at the TEA response to the prompt regarding standardized statewide entrance procedures, as well as the assessment within 30 days of enrollment. Standardized statewide program entrance procedure. On this slide, in the section at the top that has a blue field, we can see text taken directly from the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section, which states, quote, in accordance with Texas Education Code, TEC 29.056, subsection A, 1, 2, and 3, if the response on the Home Language Survey, or HLS, indicates that a language other than English is used, the student is evaluated using the TEA-approved English Language Proficiency Test. We're going to talk a little more now about the bold area in the blue field, the TEA-approved English Language Proficiency Test. In the first bullet, Texas currently allows for school districts to select from the list of approved tests a language proficiency test of their choice to use for identification and program entrance decisions. Bullet 2, beginning in school year 2019-2020, school districts will need to use a single TEA-approved test for identification and program entrance decisions to ensure that the program entrance procedure is standardized statewide. I will pause here to provide a little more information on this point. As you can see, the words standardized and statewide are italicized because this is the main language used by the USDE in their ESSA language, and it is very important that each state demonstrate that they have a standardized statewide procedure for identifying and placing students at program entrance. Therefore, here in Texas, beginning in 2019-2020, we will move to using a single TEA-approved test rather than the current practice of using a test from the list of approved tests for program entrance. Please note that this particular piece does not need to be implemented until the 2019-2020 school year, unlike the bulk of the contents of the ESSA State Plan. We are very grateful to the USDE for granting us an extra year extension to prepare for this shift to the use of a single TEA-approved test. Initially, the USDE was expressing the requirement that all changes put forth, or all information, all practices put forth in the ESSA State Plan would be initiated and implemented fully in the upcoming school year, 2018-19. But with urging and discussions, we were very happy to receive the permission to extend this piece for 1 year, so that it will be in 2019-20 that we make this move. The third bullet, the TEA will be developing a process for selecting the TEA-approved test for program entrance, and test selection will be conducted in timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders reflecting the geographic diversity of the state. Before we move on to the next piece of information, just a reminder, there will be a summary slide which will contain this information in a concise manner on a chart. So we will, in the end, review what needs to be implemented in 2018-19 school year and what we've received an extension for the 2019-2020 school year. Furthermore, on the standardized statewide program entrance procedure, we see the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section language stating, quote, "The state assures that all students will be identified as English learners or non-ELs as appropriate within 4 weeks of enrollment," end quote. Again, this piece of language that is in the blue field is language taken directly from the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section. The bulleted material is clarification, and let's begin with that. The first bullet explains our current practices here in Texas. Texas currently holds school districts accountable for identifying students as English learners within 20 school days of enrollment. This is the information contained in the current Chapter 89 Commissioner's Rules. Bullet 2, TEC 29.053, subsection B, requires that school districts determine the number of English learners on each campus and classify them according to the language in which the student possesses primary proficiency within 4 weeks of enrollment. Currently, the 20 school days and the 4 weeks, the 20 school days in Chapter 89 is clarification of the 4 weeks stated in TEC 29.053 subsection B. ESSA requires assurances that students are identified as English learners or non-ELs as appropriate within 30 days of enrollment. So beginning in the 2018-19 school year, Texas school districts will be required to identify English learners within 4 weeks of enrollment, and these are calendar weeks. As a point of clarification, I'll give an example of why 20 school days is not it does not fulfill the requirements put forth by the USDE for ESSA of 30 days, or rather does not in all cases fulfill the 30-day requirement put forth by the USDE. So one example would be if a student arrives in early to mid-March in a Texas school for the first time. The student's family indicates a language other than English on the home language survey, and the process begins to identify whether the student is an English learner or not. However, in this particular example school district, spring break occurs the following week after the student has arrived. Those days during spring break are not counted as school days according to the 20 school day rule. And so, when the student returns from spring break with the teachers and everyone else, and the process of assessing and identifying that student as an English learner or not continues, we can see how the overall time frame allotted for this student to be identified as an English learner and placed could extend beyond the 30 days that is required by USDE through ESSA. At the same time, if we look at the requirement of TEC 29.053 subsection B, which states these decisions will be made and placement will take place within 4 weeks of enrollment, we can see that the 29.053B language of 4 weeks does, in all cases, comply with the 30-day requirement of ESSA, of the USDE and ESSA. And for this reason, we will use 4 calendar weeks, as stated in the final bullet, beginning in the 2018-19 school year. Texas school districts will be required to identify English learners within 4 weeks of enrollment, and in fact, 4 calendar weeks. Should this occur around a holiday or a spring break or any other extended break, ESSA requires that we still stick within the 30 calendar days, which would be 4 calendar weeks. Let's return to the original prompt of the ESSA State Plan Title III Part A, and notice now that we are going to move from the entrance procedures that we just talked about to the standardized statewide exit procedures. In both cases, you can see that the ESSA requirements include a standardized statewide procedure, both for entrance and exit. So let's take a closer look at the standardized statewide program exit procedure in the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section, which states, quote, determination of English proficiency and recommendation for program exit are based upon the following standardized exit criteria in accordance with TEC 29.056 subsection G. First bullet, current results from the state's annual English proficiency test, or TELPAS, the Texas English Language Proficiency Assessment System. Second bullet, current satisfactory performance on the reading assessment instrument under the TEC 39.023 subsection A, or an English language arts assessment instrument administered in English selected from the list of TEA approved tests, or a score above the 40th percentile on both the English reading and English language arts sections of a TEA approved norm reference standardized achievement instrument for a student who is enrolled in grade 1 or 2. And the final bullet, with an asterisk that we will address momentarily, results of a subjective teacher evaluation using the TEA approved student exit rubric. We're going to go into the 2 pieces of language here that appear in orange print. Those represent some of the changes that we want to discuss today. So let's turn first to the first bullet, current results from the state's annual English proficiency test, or TELPAS. As in the previous slides, the blue field area provides the language from the Texas ESSA State Plan, the proposed Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section. And here we're talking about, as I said, the state's annual English proficiency test, TELPAS. First bullet, Texas currently allows for school districts to select from the list of approved tests a language proficiency test of their choice to use for program exit decisions. Beginning in the school year 2019-2020, school districts will need to use a single TEA-approved test, the TELPAS, for program exit decisions to ensure that the program exit procedure is standardized statewide. As you can see, the TEA was able to obtain a one-year extension for this portion of the ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section until 2019-2020 to give us some time to make this shift to a single TEA-approved test for program exit decisions. We are very happy and grateful to the USDE for granting us this extension and giving us a little more time to take care of all that needs to be done to make this shift. You will see here in the third bullet the asterisk with the following note. The writing portion of the TELPAS will serve as the TEA-approved criterion-referenced written test for exit criteria. We're going to come back to this point on the next slide as well to give a little more context to that. So let's move now to the standardized statewide program exit procedure, the final bullet, which reads results of a subjective teacher evaluation using the TEA-approved student exit rubric. Here we see the language repeated at the top for our reference, and let's look now at the bulleted explanation. Texas currently allows for teachers to utilize a variety of data sources, such as student portfolios, anecdotal notes, etc., to inform the subjective teacher evaluation portion of the exit criteria. Beginning in school year 2018-19, teachers will need to use a single TEA-approved instrument, the student exit rubric, to inform the subjective teacher evaluation portion of the exit criteria and ensure that Texas has a standardized statewide exit procedure. A note of explanation here. First, do note, please, that this portion of the Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section is required to begin and fully implemented in 2018-2019. There was no extension granted for this portion of that was in the plan. Notice also there is a theme across all of the information we've been sharing with you, and that is that ESSA emphasizes the importance that each state has a standardized statewide entrance and exit procedure. And so this introduction of a single TEA-approved instrument to inform subjective teacher evaluations falls right into place with the other requirements of ESSA, that evaluation and that the procedures are standardized across the state. Bullet 3. The TEA will develop the student exit rubric in timely and meaningful consultation with stakeholders from across the state in the coming months. As you will notice here, we have this title of the student exit rubric, and we just want to emphasize this is a working title of this document that will be created. It will be a rubric used for the purpose of informing the subjective teacher evaluation portion of the exit criteria, but with input from stakeholders, it is very possible that the title of this instrument may well change. So please regard this as just a working title for this document at this time. And bullet 4, we're going to return now to that asterisk and note one more time. The writing portion of the TELPAS will serve as the TEA-approved criterion-referenced written test for exit criteria. This note is inserted here, because in statute, the third exit criteria listed has two components. It has the component that includes the subjective teacher evaluation we've been talking about, And in addition, it has the component of the TEA approved criterion referenced written test. We will be using the TELPAS writing portion to serve as the TEA approved criterion referenced written test. And so this third criterion looks different now, as it only lists subjective teacher evaluation and using the exit rubric. We want to emphasize we did not do away with the TEA approved criterion referenced written test by any means, but it is included in the TELPAS writing portion, which is covered in the first bullet, or in the first exit criteria, pardon me. So now we've come to the summary and next steps chart. This is a chart that is entitled ESSA State Plan, Title III, Part A, Proposed Revisions and Next Steps. This is a 3-column chart. The first column shows us proposed revisions to current procedures. And in fact, it shows the 4 proposed revisions to current procedures that we've discussed in this presentation today. The middle column provides the implementation date. As you recall, some components of the ESSA State Plan are to be implemented in the 2018-19 school year, but other components are to be implemented in the 2019-2020 school year, thanks to the extension provided by the USDE. So we'll go over that in a moment. The third and far right-hand column of this chart are next steps. And we'll go through each of these steps to try to lay out for you what will be happening in the coming months to ensure that the ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section is implemented in a smooth fashion. So let's look at the first proposed revision to current procedures in the chart. And it is to identify students for program entrance within 4 weeks of enrollment. As a reminder, no longer 20 school days. This component will be implemented in the 2018-2019 school year. And next steps include the TEA will adjust language in Chapter 89 rule text to bring rule in alignment with federal requirements under ESSA. In addition, the TEA will update Language Proficiency Assessment Committee or LPAC training materials to align with revised rule text and the new procedures. Number 2 of the proposed revisions to current procedure. Utilize a standardized student exit rubric to inform subjective teacher evaluation portion of the program exit criteria. And as a reminder, we no longer will permit a variety of data points to inform the subjective teacher evaluation. The implementation date for this component is 2018-2019 school year. And the next steps include that the TEA will develop a student exit rubric in meaningful consultation with stakeholders and train ESCs and LEAs on the student exit rubric. The third proposed revision to current procedure in the ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section is to utilize a single TEA-approved English language proficiency test as part of the standardized statewide program entrance procedure. The implementation date for this component is 2019-2020 school year. Next steps include that we encourage school districts to make use of any purchased tests from the list of approved tests during the 2017-18 and 2018-2019 school years. Also, we will develop and implement a process for identifying the single TEA-approved language proficiency test for program entry. and we will do so in meaningful consultation with statewide stakeholders. Finally, the TEA will ensure that adequate training is provided to test administrators by the publisher of the selected TEA-approved English language proficiency test for program entry. And the fourth proposed revision to current procedure, as per the Texas ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section, is to utilize a single TEA-approved English language proficiency test as part of the standardized statewide program exit procedure. Implementation date for this component is the 2019-2020 school year. The next steps include encouraging school districts to make use of any purchased tests from the list of approved tests during 2017-2018 and 2018-2019. We hope that this chart is helpful and provides a summary that will enable you to share this information with others. As a reminder, we will post alongside the link to this recorded webinar a PDF version or document of this summary chart for you to share with others. This webinar has been recorded and will be made available for viewing on the TEA Bilingual ESL and Title III Part A web pages. We are so thankful that each of you attended today. TEA staff in the Division of English Learner Support will gather the questions submitted during the webinar via the chat feature and via the Google Doc, accessible again at lowercase https://goo.gl/uppercase N, lowercase q, 3, uppercase S, lowercase v, 3, or via the QR code at the lower right-hand corner of this slide. Those who are viewing this webinar as a video recording are welcomed as well to submit comments or questions via the Google Doc referenced above. Please know your questions will be reviewed to inform the compilation of an FAQ document to provide further clarification on the proposed ESSA State Plan Title III Part A section, with the anticipated posting date of the FAQ document being March 5th, 2008. With that, we thank you so much for giving us your attention today and for listening to this very important information. And we especially thank you for your comments and your questions that you have already submitted via the chat feature or the Google Doc, or that you plan to submit subsequent to this meeting. Please share with others the link to the recording of the video, as well as the PDF of the chart, the summary chart. We look forward to helping you in the future and answering your questions to the best of our ability. Thank you very much and have a wonderful day and weekend.